Hey guys, this is Andy with Get Your Wellies. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're actually going to be in the kitchen, not the garden. But as always, you know you need to get your wellies. Meet me in the garden. So guys, a couple of weekends ago, had the opportunity to go to the Arkansas Homestead Conference. A friend of mine joined me along for that ride. A couple other friends that we were supposed to meet were not able to make it. So Mark and Mo, sorry you couldn't make it there. However, we met some really interesting people. Homesteads conferences tend to be that way. It's a very eclectic group of people. And anyway, we met Tim and Amy Kennard. They have a channel about their homestead, the Kennard Homestead. And Amy did a really good talk on canning. Now, I have to admit, I was a little surprised to find out that people are in a similar boat to me when it comes to canning. Whilst I feel like I have a pretty good background in gardening and I can answer a lot of questions about that, I've done it for a while. Canning, although the idea of doing it sounds great, is actually something, in all truthfulness, I've been a little bit afraid of. So, you know, you would hear horror stories about canners blowing up in kitchens and lids getting embedded in ceilings and things like that. There's so many safety features on these things, and there has been for a long time. Amy, in her talk, was able to pretty much alleviate all my fears about that. So today I am actually going to do my first pressure canning, and so this is what I have. It's a 23 quart canner made by Presto. I have used this canner before for doing hot water bath, but that's a whole other different thing. So today will be the first time I actually can with it. So I was going to take you along for that ride, and maybe, just maybe, if you're one of the people who's been afraid to use a canner, maybe you don't even own one, but maybe it's something you should look at. Anyway, watch me work through this and maybe consider it. There are some rubber components, main one here being this seal, which goes on the inside of the lid. It fits in here. Although this has not been used, and it actually feels pretty soft, it's old, and rubber just deteriorates. You wouldn't want to drive on tires, even if they only had 5,000 miles on them, if those tires were 8 or 9 years old, because they're not going to be reliable at all. So these are cheap. I bought a pack of 2 seals, and then the other part that goes on top is this little, kind of like a grommet looking thing, but it fits in the lid right here in this hole. Let's see if I can get it close enough. And that is another safety feature of this pressure canner. So if all else fails and you're left with just this, when this gets to a certain pressure, way less than what would blow the entire thing up, this is going to literally pop out and steam's going to shoot out of here. I'm sure it's impressive. We're not going to try that. But anyway, I did replace those seals, very readily available on Amazon. So if you have one that's been sitting like mine, you might want to do that. So the new seal just literally just slots right in there. That's all you've got to do with that. Super easy. And then the grommet just fits right in here. The thicker part's going to go to the inside of the lid. The outer side is kind of flat to the top of the lid. The other thing before we use this, and this is a safety thing you really need to do, once you've washed this lid, you want to make sure this is where your weight is going to sit, that this is clear, no debris in it, because if that's blocked, the pressure is going to build up in this canner. The easiest way to do that is just to, I don't know if the camera can do it, let's see, is just to look through that hole, and as long as you can see light the other side, totally round, which it is, then it's safe to use. You can even just take a paper clip or something like that and poke it through there just to make sure there's no debris in it. Okay, so let's move on with this process. So I have my new seal in here, have my new pressure release here, and this tray goes down in the bottom of our canner. You don't want to let your cans, or sorry, your jars sit on the bare metal at the bottom. They needs to have this tray in here, also called a rack. If you're gonna have more than one layer of jars, you'll need a second rack, which I went ahead and got that while I was getting my seal, so I think I'm gonna have a couple extra jars for on top. So I'll use that when the time comes. Now, just because I wanted to get some experience, I went to Walmart and bought a cheap bag of black beans. These are, I think, I don't know, $5 maybe. I bought a couple of bags. So one bag is what I emptied out, sorted the beans just like you would pull out any little bits of gravel or sticks or anything like that that's in there, or any beans that just look funky. And then I put half a cup of black beans in each 1 pint jar. Now if you're doing quarts, then you can put a whole cup of beans in there. Okay guys, so we've got our black beans that have been rinsed and sorted till they've run clear and we got all the bits out. Then half a cup in each pint jar here. And now we're going to add just a half teaspoon of salt. I'm going to use Morton's canning salt. And you can also add any other things you like to add, like maybe cumin or garlic or maybe even chili powder or something. You can do that if you want to. As I've already admitted, this is my first time to pressure can, so I am just going to go with the salt and do a very basic canning this time. Alright guys, so I'm going to add half a teaspoon of Morton's canning salt to each one. There we go, that's 6 of them. And I went ahead and used up all the beans, so that's taken 12 jars, so I'm going to have to put an extra layer on for the extra jars in the canner. We'll see that here in a minute. But super easy so far. You want to make sure all of your lids and jars are clean, but the process will sterilize them, so just make sure they're clean. Alright guys, so I'm going to go through now and fill all of these jars, and I don't have a fancy funnel for this. There are ones you can get that just sit in here, so I'm just going to have to just be careful, and I want to come up to leave 1 inch of headspace, which is basically where your threads on your jar start. So it's going to be right up to about here. So right about there. That's right at 1 inch. So let's move that back. I'll show you another one, and then I'll fill the rest and we'll come back. It's about right there. Okay. So I'll get the rest of these and then we'll be back. So now guys, we're going to just use a non-metallic spatula. It's a wooden or this is a silicone one. There is a really nice little kit you can buy that has like the grabbers to pick up your jars when they're hot, and it's got a funnel in it, and it's got one of these. I probably need to get one if I'm going to keep doing this, which I hope I do. So we're just getting air bubbles out of here. And then we'll be ready to put the lids on and get them into the canner and get this process started. I may have done some of these more than once, that's okay. I'm not seeing any bubbles in those ones. A few in there. Some of the other things you might can later, there may be more air just because it's trapped in the fruit, depending on what you're canning. I've started eating a lot of black beans because I'm eating basically vegan right now. So finding protein sources is important. Black beans, they're one of my favorite beans anyway, but they do have a lot of protein in them. So that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to experiment with these first. And I think they're going to be good. This may become quite the thing to do. And if you have a garden and you're getting lots of produce in the summertime, this is really a great way to preserve your food. And really, I think it was Amy that talked to me about, or talked to the group when she was giving the class. I'm pretty sure it was her that said that really you just kind of got to figure out what you need, and you don't need to have 8 years worth of stuff. You just need enough to get you to the next fresh season of growing. So okay, so let's go to the next step. So the next step, I'm just going through here with a soft cloth. I can feel through this pretty well. And what you're doing is just making sure there's no pieces of anything on that rim. Because if you've got some debris up there that's gotten on there during all the things we've done, it could easily stop your jar from sealing. So this is really feeling it more than anything. I'm not adding anything to this. And these are actually brand new jars. So not that you couldn't buy some jars that there's a faulty one, but these have not been knocked around in the garage or anything like that. So the next step, I'm going to put lids on. So the lid is inside the ring here. I'm sure you all have seen these before. And I'm just going to pop that on. And then if you watch this, you don't want to grab a hold of this and crank it as much as you can. But you do want that to be, if you put it on tight, you'll probably never be able to get it off. So you just want it finger tight. So that's like thumb and 2 fingers tight, and that should be fine. When this metal heats up, it's going to expand a little bit and give you a bit more space. So I'm just going through and doing all of that. Okay, there we are. So notice they were not turned down really hard, just 2 fingers and thumb tightness. That's all you really need. Also, notice that nothing in this process so far has been hot. There's one of the nice things about pressure canning is this temperature in the can is going to get up to 240 degrees. So way past boiling point, you're not going to get it past 212 without pressure. So it does all of the sterilizing part for you. You really don't need to work with hot fluids, hot lids, hot jars, any of that, unless you're doing hot contents, i.e. water bath for the more acidic foods. In the case of low acid foods like beans are, literally we just are going to put it all in cold and the stove will heat everything up to that desired pressure and temperature. So guys, I have put my water in here, and I did go ahead, and since I couldn't find my manual, I went ahead and downloaded the PDF one. And then, so this calls for 3 quarts of water, and there is actually a mark on the inside of the canner that indicates where that is. And then I put my tray in here, my jar rack, and now I'm going to start adding my jars to this. Okay guys, so being careful to place these on the tray and not banged up against each other. I'm gonna see how many of these we can get in here. These are pint jars, remember? And I think I'm gonna actually be able to get most of them on this one level. Let's see. So they're all pretty close. I think I've got 4 other jars left. I probably could get more in there maybe, but I'm going to just go ahead and put the additional tray in here. The main thing is you don't want them to be directly on each other. Okay. So actually making more jars than I thought. That used all of the jars in that pack. Alright, there we go. Now when you line up the lid, I had to turn my pot around because you want to be able to see this arrow, and you also want to be able to see, let's see, this arrow here on the edge. And hopefully you can see that right above my thumb. But what you're going to do is line that up, and a nice soft setting there. You could feel it land on the rubber. So these 2 arrows are now together. So to close the cannon, we're just going to turn it this way, and that's it. So now we're going to go ahead and start heating it up. So I have my canner up on our gas range here, and I'm going to go ahead and light this, and we'll put it up on like just a little over medium, sort of medium high on there. And it's probably going to take a little time because again, I started with all cold water, cold fluid. So the first thing we're going to be looking for is the vent here, which we checked to make sure was clear. We're going to start seeing some steam coming out of there. And once we see a nice steady flow of steam, we're going to start the timer for 10 minutes. Also, we will probably see this sort of spitting and sputtering a little bit before that happens. With pressure canning, what we're trying to do is actually get all of the air out of the canner, which is why you want to wait for that steady stream over here, and this will sputter for a bit. But once the air's out, this will pop up and lock, and then we can put the weight on here. This is the weight that sits on top of here, on top of the vent, once we get that to where we need to start building pressure. And this is actually another safety feature built in. This, if you just leave this on, the most this canner can get to is 15 pounds of pressure. So between the pop off here and this, it's really very safe. So I mean, I say that like I really know that. I think the problem for me is I was kind of scared of it. I mean, if this is something that's building up a significant amount of pressure, we're going to get this up to 10-11 pounds, right around that range. My manual says 11. I'm pretty sure we were working with 10 at the weekend that I learned about this, but 11's fine. So we'll get it to that point. Watching the gauge kind of close here in a little while. So for right now, let's wait, and when that steam starts coming out, I'm going to show that to you. See you in a minute, guys. So as you can see, the pressure's building. We have a nice steady flow out there, so I've got the timer set for 10 minutes. Also, the pressure's coming up, as we can see, by the front pop-up. That will pop up here to lock everything in once we put the weight on. So a few more minutes and we'll get that going. But there's our nice stream that we need to see right there. So now we have a very steady jet of steam coming out here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the weight on because our pop-up valve is lifted too, which means it's building pressure up in there. So I actually turn that down just a little bit. So be sure and wear a mitt or glove for this. And there we go. So now we're going to watch the temperature rise, and our pop-up valve is already here. So now it's building pressure. The next thing will be our little weight. We'll start kind of rocking, so we'll be looking for that next. So our pop-up valve is up, our pressure is up to 6 pounds. We're still waiting on our weight to start rocking a little bit, but it's coming along. It's just been a few minutes, so we'll keep watching. So we're at about 10.5 pounds of pressure now, and it's moving up much more slowly, so I'm going to just make very small adjustments to try and keep it right there at 11. So it's up to 13, and now I've backed it off several notches. The main thing, you don't want it to drop too fast either, because that can cause siphoning with the cans, and they will literally, because the pressure's dropped, it'll suck fluid out of the jars, so we don't want that to happen. So again, you just got to kind of watch it close and tweak it. So now it's holding at 13. I've got it turned down just a little bit more, so we'll see if it'll just slowly creep back towards 11. And the other thing is, you don't want to drop below that, because you got to have 75 minutes at the right pressure, and if you lose that, you're going to have to start the 75 minutes again. So that was something I clarified at the conference. So guys, I've turned off the stove. We've spent 75 minutes at 11 pounds of pressure, and so now we're going to let this just cool down, and then I'll move the jars over to the counter, let them cool off overnight. So thanks for joining me, and we'll take a look at those cans. I'll tell you about lids here in just a minute. Well guys, it's been about 30 minutes since I've turned the stove off, and there's just a little bit of pressure left on that gauge, and the pop-up valve is still up, so it's still got to do a little bit more. It actually is still very hot too, so it's going to take probably a few more minutes. But once that pressure's all the way out and the pop-up valve goes down, I can take the vent cover off here and take the lid off, and then I can move the cans over to the counter, and then we'll check lids. Well guys, I ended up with 2 of those cans, 2 of those jars did not pop and dimple down here, so I have a total of 10 that are good, and the other ones actually have that cooking right now. I'm gonna eat some tonight, and I'm gonna also take some to work with me tomorrow, and the other can is in the fridge right there, so it will end up being eaten tomorrow and the next day as well. So the others are all good and not bad for my first time around, I don't think, so I'm pretty happy with that. So thanks for joining me today, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'm just cleaning up my canning stuff tonight and putting it away, ready for the next time. Until the next time, guys, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Until then, bye now.